In our top story this afternoon, DA leader Mmusi Maimane will address the media at the party's headquarters in Nkululeko House in Johannesburg. The Federal Executive Committee of the DA is currently meeting in the wake of the resignation of Johannesburg's Mayor Herman Mashaba. Whilst the spotlight is on Mashaba, there is, however, speculation that the future of Mmusi Maimane could also be a topic of discussion. Maimane was present at Mashaba's resignation briefing, where the outgoing mayor slammed the DA, accusing it of having been taken over by right-wing elements. Well, for an update on what seems to have been a pretty long day, we now cross to our reporter, Natasha Phiri. Natasha, thanks so much for joining us once again. I'm seeing a very relaxed atmosphere, or is it fatigue there?
Well, not a relaxed atmosphere, Peter, as you say, but rather fatigue. I mean, the journalists here have been here as early as, 9 o'clock. Once again at 3 o'clock. Remember, if you remember properly, the briefing was supposed to take place at 1 o'clock. It was then moved to a later stage of 3 o'clock. And then at 3 o'clock, we were then told that actually the briefing will not take place anytime soon. And of course, they will then indicate what time the briefing will be. So I remember vividly, Mmusi came in, the acting executive director of communications, coming in at an earlier stage, saying that he will update us on the latest developments. And then party spokesperson Mmusi Maimane came in about an hour ago, saying that discussions are still underway, and of course they will give us a time indication when they're just about to wrap up. But there's a video clip that I actually tweeted on Twitter where Soli is actually saying that. But I mean, it's quite interesting to note that in the midst of him actually briefing the members of the media, he had said that there is a crisis. So I mean, this point of him saying there is a crisis, we're not so sure as to what he was actually addressing or what crisis he was actually speaking about. Could there be a crisis upstairs at the FedEx meeting? We're not so sure. I mean, for the fact that deliberations are taking so long actually speaks to the point that discussions upstairs could be quite tense. Might I add that there are speculations, and of course, and these are unconfirmed reports. Could I just please stress that again? These are unconfirmed reports that Mmusi Maimane might be reconsidering staying as DA leader. Of course, these are just according to insiders, but of course, these are just unconfirmed reports, Peter. But of course, we could be expecting Mmusi Maimane to come in any time from now, or perhaps later on to come brief members of the media, and of course South Africans at large who are just waiting with bated breath to actually hear what Mmusi Maimane has to say.
All right, I guess all that we can do at the moment is speculate, but certainly the fact that it's taken so long means that these talks or these discussions are very difficult for the Democratic Alliance.
Definitely, Peter, and of course one thing to also note is the body language of Mmusi, the body language of the DA spokesperson Mmusi Maimane, quite tense, walking in here like they've had, the longest time actually here at the party's headquarters. So quite interesting to actually note these developments. I mean, we've been here as early as 9 a.m. and of course we've been hearing that they will be briefing us at this certain time, then cancelling and postponing. So unfortunately, we all have to wait and see what Mmusi Maimane has to say.
All right, remind us who's actually in the room.
Well, of course, the likes of Helen Zille, who's actually chairing, the FedEx meeting, who is now the Federal Council chairperson, is there. We've got the likes of Mmusi Maimane, we've got the likes of Mike Waters, Thomas Walters, of which we saw, Natasha Mazoni, John Steenhuisen, Makashule Ghana, and just a lot of other DA leaders. I also spotted John Moody there, and Refilwe, who is the leader of Dawn. So, quite, prominent leaders of the party are actually engaged in discussions upstairs. Like I said to you earlier on, I wish I was a fly in that room to actually know what discussions are and how robust and tense the discussions really are.
All right, and perhaps as a final a question for you, I'm seeing the podium that Mmusi Maimane is going to be talking from draped in a black cloth. Tell us a little bit about that setting, because it's been creating a bit of a buzz on social media. Have you ever seen a DA briefing like this before?
Definitely, Peter. If I'll just ask Mpumi just to probably zoom in on this podium. I've never seen, podium like this in the history of the DA. I mean, normally we'd come into a room full of DA branding, but of course, this is now what we are seeing, a podium. It also gives the insinuation that Mmusi Maimane will just be delivering his speech and there won't be a Q&A with members of the media, as there are no chairs here as per usual. Also quite interesting to note what we had actually talked about, his dress code and his attire earlier on, that he was actually dressed in black, Peter. And of course, in our culture, we associate all black clothing with mourning, with grieving, and seeing that, I mean, he's come under attack lately says a lot, actually. So, I mean, actions do speak louder than words. So, is this the end for Mmusi Maimane? I guess we all have to wait and see, Peter.
All right, yes indeed, all of it happening upstairs. Natasha, we'll cross you again a little bit later on, perhaps during the next program. Hopefully there will be something to say, because I know that you're all waiting as patiently as you can. Thanks so much indeed for that update. All right, so that was Natasha Phiri, who's at Nkululeko House in Johannesburg, where the DA leader is expected to address the media. We don't know what time, because this was scheduled for 1 o'clock and it's now 4 hours later, still no word. But the word crisis has been used by a party spokesperson. Not quite sure in what context that might mean, but it is clear that some pretty heavyweight discussions are taking place and likely to involve the future of the current party leader, Mmusi Maimane. We'll keep you posted and updated on that story as it continues to unfold.